There are a lot of videos, books, and opinions out there on how to learn the whole fretboard. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the most popular approaches. The first method is the linear method, and this means you understand that each string is a set of notes into itself. For example, the first string, open, is E from tuning it. So that means as you go up the string, you're going to go higher in sound. So the first fret's F, the next one's G, A, B, C, D, E, etc. So it's just going up in alphabetical order. And so each string does that. And so it's a good way to learn because you kind of get a sense of what's on each one of the strings. You would practice this by saying the note names as you go up the neck, either diatonically, meaning E, F, G, or chromatically, including the sharps and flats in between it. Then you might want to jump around so that you can try to test yourself so that you're not always doing it in a predictable type of pattern. The pros are that you see where the notes are going in a linear fashion, much like you would on piano. The cons is it's not always practical. You're not going to remember the notes that well because you're always going to think of them in terms of going up or back. Also, when you're playing, you don't want to be jumping around all the time. The more you jump around, the more likely you are to miss a note and make a mistake. So if you can keep your fingers within a certain area of the neck, it works to your advantage. 2 on our list is what I call the traditional method. This means you start learning by using a method book like Mel Bay or Hal Leonard, and you learn how to read the notes as you go through the neck. The downside to that is these books usually only address the open position. So you learn how to play from the open string to about the 3rd or 4th fret, but beyond that, if they do cover it, it's very limited. You don't really know the rest of the neck. You'll just be comfortable in this first position or the open position here. The third approach I call the scale method, where you learn scales in order to learn the neck. And this can be good. So let's say, for example, you learn the C major scale right here at the 3rd fret on the 5th string. And you just kind of crawl up across. And then you realize that there are more notes from that scale in this whole region. So you could go back all the way to G, back all the way up. And then you realize that what you have here is a scale pattern. And that pattern can then be moved anywhere on the neck. So if I want to play a major scale, I can come anywhere and have my fingers do the same thing I was doing down here. And so there are a lot of good advantages to that. You learn your scales well, but the downside is you learn the patterns more so than you learn the notes. So you might not know what notes you're playing or even be aware of what key you're in, but you would still be able to play those patterns. So within this approach, there are kind of 3 sub-approaches that you could take a look at. One of them is to learn the box patterns, just meaning that with any 4 frets, you would learn a pattern that your fingers fit under nice and easily. Another one is the 3 notes per string, which is taught a lot, which just gives you 3 notes that you crawl through with each string, and you go through all the strings finding the notes in that scale. And so that can be useful as well. And then finally, of course, you could learn other different types of scales, like the pentatonic scale, which gives you fewer notes to learn, and it kind of gives you a good guide of where to put your fingers again. But again, the downside is that you learn the pattern and not necessarily the notes as you're going through that. So the 4th method for getting to know your neck is called the caged method, or the caged system. And what that refers to are the chords that spell out the word caged, which is C, A, G, E, D. So those chords help guide you up the neck. However, the difficult part about understanding the caged system is you need to know a little bit of music theory for it to make sense. And you have to have some experience with the guitar. You have to know some bar chords and things like that. And some of the chords in the caged system are a little bit difficult to play. The advantage of the caged system is it connects the harmony with the melody notes. So here's what I mean by that. We'll start with the first chord in the cage system, the C. So you would play a C chord, and then you would learn where that scale is. So you can hear that's the C major scale. And then you could take that C shape and move it anywhere on the neck. So if I go to the 5th fret, I lay a bar down, play that same chord, then the notes for that scale are going to fall right under my fingers in the same exact spot. So even though I'm playing a little bit differently because I have the bar down, you can hear it's the same type of pattern. So learning that does take some time. It is a good system though, because it does open up the neck so that you can see how these basically 5 patterns are all connected and relate to each other. The downside is that it's best learned when you're a more experienced player. And then finally, we have the missing method, which of course is a combination of all of these different methods. So in order to explain that, I'm going to kind of tell you what my guitar philosophy is, how I see the fretboard, because everybody looks at it differently. I see it as broken down into 3 main areas that then repeat. So the first area covers frets 0 through 4. So in book 1 of the Missing Method series, you'll cover those frets, how to read them, where you put your fingers for those, and you'll explore them in all different keys. The next region of the neck covers frets 5 through 8. And you can see my fingers cover 1 note per fret. And so book 2 in the Missing Method series teaches you how to read all of those notes in this section of the neck. Then, of course, as you might guess, you come up to frets 9 through 12, and that's where the 4 fingers fall in place. And so, of course, book 3 covers that region of the neck, teaching you how to read those. And so when you're done with books 1 through 3, you'll be able to read everything from open all the way up to the 12th fret fairly easily. Then, how I see it from there is once you learn those 3 positions, there are 2 crossover positions where you can cross over the first position with the 5th position by playing somewhere in the middle here. And then you can cross over the 5th position with the 9th position by again playing in the middle of that. And book 4 covers both of those. So essentially book 4 covers everything from about the 3rd fret all the way to the 12th fret. And so we have those 3 main positions, we have 2 crossover positions, and then from the 12th fret up, everything repeats. However, when you read it on paper, it's much higher. And so the 5th book in the series addresses that. It gives you practice reading those notes from frets 12 through 15. And the nice thing is it covers every single note. So it's not just E, F, G, A, B, C, D. It also covers all the sharps, all the flats, and every key, so you really know your instrument inside and out. So this book series really digs into note reading and understanding your fretboard unlike any other. You'll go from knowing how to read no notes at all to being able to read the entire fretboard by the time you're done. Now it does take time, but any good method for learning the entire neck does take some time and some dedication, but it's well worth it. Because what it does is it gives you the creative freedom that every musician wants. You'll be able to know where your notes are in an instant because you won't be searching around or thinking you got the right note or just relying on scale patterns. Your fingers will go where you want them to go, and you're going to sound how you want to sound.